I know I'll never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminded of how I've been set free? There is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. On my talent for dead beneath the waters, I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I'm bound to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded, your power set me free. There is a grave that holds nobody, now the power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, 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 and I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to it. I can hear the roar in the heavens as space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stays between us. Nothing stays between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So I'm only when the space between where the things unseen and is reckoning. I know I will never be alone. And I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to it. I can hear the roar in the heavens as space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stays between us. Nothing stays between us.
Hey everybody, happy Sunday. It's the Lord's Day, so let's rejoice in it. Let us be glad and rejoice. Yeah, as you can see, I'm going to be giving the message for this week. So for those of you guys who are tuning in, just have open ears, open hearts, and just take what you can from this, and hopefully the Spirit will speak through me, and you'll be able to learn something out of this, right? Before we start, and I dive into what I have to say today, I want us to go through a Bible verse. It's going to be from Jeremiah 29, chapter 29, verse 11, and I'll read this. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you, and plans to give you a hope and a future. Now, just before I move forward a little bit more, just to give a little context about this verse and where it is and like the timeline and history and all that. The Israelites are pretty much in exile. They're exiled. They're probably in not the best circumstances. They're kicked out of their home. Everyone's like, oh, I want to go back to where, the good old days, right? And in this verse, in this chapter, God gives encouragement to his people because he knows what's in store for them, and he knows what's in store for us, And during these very parallel times, it's not necessarily an exile, but we're going through this crisis and the things that are happening in this world. Keep that in mind and remember this. God has plans to prosper you, and God encourages you. So as I was contemplating what to share with everyone this week, I was inspired by this song that I kind of shared in the WeChat, it's WhatsApp, and it was a song called "Driven by Love." Now the chorus and the lyrics for the chorus go something like this: "Driven by love, till all have heard, we'll carry your name to the ends of the earth. We'll carry your love and shine with your light till the whole world knows you and lifts you high." I really like these words. I enjoy the music. It's awesome to listen to. It's very catchy. But at the same time, it reminded me of Paul the Apostle. So if you guys remember or know who Paul is, he was a guy who wrote all these letters to the churches as he was doing his missionary work. He carried the name of Jesus wherever he went to or wherever he ended up, and he was able to share his sufferings, his pains, his testimony, and his love for the church, the universal church, through his letters and the people who needed, like Church of Corinth or anything like that, right? So I figured it would be pretty nice to do something similar to what Paul did with his letters to the church, but with a modern take, right? So, with that being said, here is my vlog to the church, the Bridge Church, right? And live stream episode number 2. And it's going to be titled Perspectives and Encouragement. God is with you, right? This is a bittersweet moment for me, personally, because it's my last Sunday here in New York City as a New York City resident before Debbie and I moved to California. And that's just a few days away. And the timing of this move, at this moment, coinciding with when I was scheduled to give this message, makes me kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit, And as I jotted some notes down for today, I couldn't help but ask myself, God, what do you want me to speak about? The past week, or a few weeks rather, have been super hectic. I started a new job, so I'm constantly working, getting pretty busy, and staying busy. Then there's all this news of coronavirus everywhere, and just the exponential growth, and just the cases and blah blah blah. It's pretty sad. And on top of that, just the logistics of preparing to move, pack packing everything and doing all that stuff, right? Like, that's crazy in itself. Like, moving is such a pain in the butt. Try not to do it very often, right? So, on the topic of moving, it's been 3 years since I lived in my current apartment with Debbie, and 3 years equates to a lot of stuff, a lot of junk, a lot of stuff, and I consider myself a hoarder, right? Are you guys familiar with Marie Kondo? She's that lady who is all about tidying up and keeping things that only spark joy and getting rid of the rest. I kind of laugh at that, right? 95% of the things that I pick up, I find in my room or in the closet or wherever it is. I pick it up and go, does this spark joy? And 95% of the time, it's yes. Yes, it does. For every little thing it is, right? So clearly it's not for everyone. And one thing that I did find during just organizing and packing things was my journal. Okay. And just putting this out there, I don't write regularly. I don't journal regularly or anything like that. But I found this journal. And it was from 2013, back when I was 23 years old, and it kind of feels like forever ago. So reading through the journal, it got me thinking about two things. Right? One, the concept of journaling is actually very interesting. It's interesting because in that moment of time, when you're writing a journal entry or whatever, you transcribe the innermost thoughts and emotions and feelings and desires and all those things, and you're transcribing it onto paper, right? It's something that you can look back on as like a slice of truth in your history, and it's untampered by like your fading memory or delusion or anything like that, right? Like, you ever feel so certain that something happened in the past, but really like it never did? You just kind of like made it up, but you feel like and you think it's real. Like, that happens all the time, right? To people. People don't have perfect recollection of memory like whatsoever, and that's definitely the case for me. The second thought that I had while reading through my journal was, wow, I was lost. Like, I was a lost soul. I was wandering, and I couldn't help but reflect on who I was at that time, right? That was like 7 years ago. So I'll share, I guess, my testimony, a little testimony to go over these two thoughts and, that slice of time in my life. And let me start with the second point, which was that I was a lost soul, and I'll move on to the first, right? So, like I said, like, mind blown. I was reading it, and I was like, wow, like, it is, like, I was, like, seriously lost, right? I clearly, I lived it back then, but, like, I kind of forgot about it, and this journal just kind of brought that up to life. I clearly just archived a lot of stuff that I went through, and I haven't really opened it back up. It's like the Sunday bulletin jubo that we get, the announcement. I read it, I take it home, I throw it on the dining room table or put it in my bag. Like, it's as good as deleted at that point, right? We don't really go back to it. And it's kind of similar to when you hear a message, like David's message or my message or any of the messages, or even reading passages in the Bible, right? We are in the moment, we read it, we listen to it, we process it, but then it like slowly fades. That's just like kind of what happens, right? But the next time that we hear the same message or the same theme or go back to the same passage or whatever it may be, it rings a different tune almost, and you take it in with a new perspective, new lens, you have new experiences, and you pay attention to details that you may have missed the first time around. And that is why I believe like the Bible is the living word, right? It's constantly changing with you and your perspectives. Anyways, I digress. thinking back to that time in my life, 2013, I was in Texas with no family. I spent a lot of time in solitude. You know, I was so lost, and it's very evident in my writing. I actually have hundreds of entries, which is like really weird. I have hundreds of entries, and they have a pattern, just like motifs that like happen through all the entries, right? And the themes are of doubt. You know, I was highly doubting everything, loneliness, despair. I was clearly seeking something. I was clearly seeking some kind of direction. Just being lost, questioning my motivation, my purpose. There was a lot of reflection of better times, like the good old days, right? But really, it was just me stuck in the past, right, with nothing to look forward to. And another motif was I was clearly wrestling with God. I was wrestling with my faith. And, you know, the sum of all of this, like, this is what it must have felt like to be imprisoned almost. If these feelings of despair, loneliness, questioning, being lost is eternal, like forever, this must be what hell is kind of like, right? And it was not great. Now, this was all in the span of 8 months, which, if you think about it, is relatively short compared to the rest of eternity, just like this to like eternity, right? But in that time, it felt like my life was kind of over, and everything was hopeless. Have you ever felt what I felt? Do you feel this way now? Do you feel that what's happening in the world with the coronavirus adds to the sense of hopelessness? Like, it may or not. Well, let me tell you that God is with you. He has been, is now, and will be, even if you don't feel it, right? Feelings are fleeting, but God is. That's something that I've learned. Here is another passage from Romans. Chapter 8, verse 26. It says, "In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray for, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans." Okay, so now pedaling back to the first point, right, which was journaling is very interesting. You know, I said that, you know, at that moment in time, I was transcribing my innermost thoughts and my feelings onto paper. And what I probably didn't realize at the time, but I realize now, just looking back, is that God also knew my innermost feelings and thoughts. Right? He knows them now, and He will always know them. And just because I wasn't, like, praying those words out loud, and I was just writing it down, doesn't mean that God doesn't know, right? So, like the passage I just read, the Spirit is always interceding for us, right? Even though we have no words, the Spirit knows, and He groans for us, right? He knew then in my life, He knows now, and He will continue to know. And if I can go back and tell myself one thing, if I go back in time and I met myself, and I was like, hey, know that God is with you. Now, without going into too much detail, when I left Texas, I felt super hopeful. I wanted to find love. I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to, just like invest in relationships and grow like friends and like friendships and be close to family and all that stuff, right? And even though I recently came out of this, time of despair, I'm not dead yet. I'm still alive, and I have much to live for and look forward to, right? And when I eventually came back to New York, that's when I found my stride in life, right? So my career grew and to where it is now. I learned extremely valuable skills and met a lot of people. I got married to Debbie. I grew in musicianship. Like, I love playing music. I made many friends, and I was able to disciple people like in ways that I could, right? And if I had to explain in a few words how I got to this point and how I got out of that rut, it would be move forward, don't look back, and be obedient, right? Any time that's not spent dwelling in the past, any time that's not spent worrying about things that are out of your control now, or like the consequences that, you know, you have no control over that. Any time that's not spent on those things, I think is progress, right? Always think ahead, upwards and onwards, right? And God's law is above all else, right? This was a special mantra of my heart, and it still is. I believe that if you bear the fruits of the Holy Spirit, and, you know, love your neighbor as yourself, or love your neighbor as Christ loved the church, then there really is no way that you can do wrong. The message of I am third here continues to resonate with me. And remember the lyrics that I shared in the beginning, you know, I'll carry your love and try to be the light to those around me. But at the same time, I'm human, so are you. So was Paul, who wrote so many of those letters to the church. Literally everyone has fallen short of the glory of God. Like, everybody. No one comes close. And, you know, like, as harsh as this may sound, like, the penalty of sin is death, right? But juxtapose this is the beauty of grace. This is the beauty of the forgiveness, the beauty of the resurrection that, you know, we believe in. Just to have that relationship with God, it bears a huge weight, you know. And I hope that you can kind of reflect on the gravity of that weight. And that's for like another time. But, you know, it's really through faith and obedience, that I believe you can grow. As unnoticeable as it may seem in the moment, it's all about just grit and just being disciplined, right? It's through faith and obedience that you develop your character, that you build hope. It's through faith and obedience that you actually get to experience living a full life, right? Which is very opposite of what the media tells you. And you can look back in life, as I'm doing now and as I have, and see how God is molding you through these times, right? Through all your struggles, right? And to reference Sean's message just, you know, a short while ago, you know, we have to, through faith and obedience, we have to try to become that titanium knee replacement, you know? And I kind of want to leave you guys with this message of encouragement and a call to action, right? I plead with you guys, right? Now is the time to step into faith and into action. Don't wait. Don't wait for a sign. Don't wait for something. You have to move, right? Now is the time to use the talents, the resources that God has graciously given you and allowed us to have, right? Don't let it go to waste. Look for opportunities to put others before yourself, right? To serve them, to give and give until it hurts, to give and give until like there's nothing left to give, right? And at the same time, don't be afraid to become leaders. Leaders in the church, leaders at your work, leaders in school, leaders amongst your friends. Like, be leaders, right? For those of you who may think that you're too young, I kind of understand, but my words to you is that age doesn't matter, right? Just because you hit X age, let's say like 30 or something like that, or 40 even, that's when you magically gain all these skills and your ability to lead just like grows out of nowhere, out of thin air. Like that's not how it works, right? You have to start somewhere, right? So don't let age be a barrier. You can be leaders, right? You have to work for it, you have to experience it, and you have to start now, right? And remember, through all this, and what I'm pleading and encouraging you guys with is that God is with you, right? Just to go back to the opening verse, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Right? I'm excited to see how God works through the Bridge Church and the fruits that come from the obedience and the faithfulness of you guys. Right? Debbie and I surely are going to continue to carry God's love and to carry God's name, Jesus' name, wherever we go. Right? Stay steadfast, stay safe, remain faithful, and stay in touch with us. Right? Yeah, that's it. Remember to hit subscribe and give a thumbs up on the channel.
Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is He. Sing a new song to Him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Slain, holy, holy is He. We sing a new song to Him who sits on